conference. Always, there are many things happening in space. You got a bit of a flavor of that during the opening ceremonies. And as always, space is focused on really two directions: looking out into our universe to learn more about it through exploration, but also looking increasingly back at our planet and using the vantage point of space for communications, navigation, and increasingly more and more for Earth observation. I think more and more the importance of space is being recognized worldwide for its strategic value in terms of understanding life on our planet, to improve life on our planet, understanding the global issues such as environmental change, and also moving out in the frontiers of our knowledge through exploration. Like you, I look forward to the presentations this morning from our eminent panel, and they will each speak in turn. Each speaker will speak for about 8 or 9 minutes, and that will be followed by a question period, and this is where you come in. I hope that you will be ready with your questions. We'll have about 5 minutes of questions for after each panelist speaks. So please prepare your questions, and I will moderate that part of the proceedings, and I believe that there will be microphones to allow you to ask your questions. If there aren't, you'll just have to shout them, and we'll manage. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Jean-Jacques Dordain, the Director General of the European Space Agency, who became the Director General in 2003 and who recently had his second approval for a second mandate beginning in 2007. So please help me to greet Jean-Jacques Dordain, Director General of ESA.
Thank you, Mark. Just to say that I am glad to see you among us today. So I am glad to be here in Valencia and especially in Spain, one of the member states of ESA. It's a very important member state in many aspects, on political ground, but also on scientific ground and on industrial ground. I must say also because Spain is one of the member states increasing its contribution to ESA, which is always good news. I am honored also to be the first speaker among my colleagues, heads of agencies, and I shall present shortly the current programs and future plans of Europe in space. Just to recall that Europe in space is a combination of different programs. Government programs and commercial programs, all contributing to Europe in space. Government programs represent today 2/3 of the space programs in Europe, meaning that 1/3 represent the share of European industry on the worldwide commercial market, basically telecommunications and launch services. And I can say that European industry is certainly successful on that commercial market. But the commercial market has its ups and downs. Among the government programs, ESA programs represent around 50% of the government programs. The national and multilateral civilian programs representing around 20%. The national and multilateral programs for defense representing 15%, EUMETSAT representing a little bit more than 5%, and the European Commission around 5%. All these programs are important because they all contribute to the success of Europe. So ESA has a special place, not only because ESA represents 50% of these government programs, but also because ESA cooperates with a lot of national programs in science, in telecommunications, in Earth observation, and not only with the big contributors, France, Germany and Italy, but also with Sweden, with Spain, and with other member states. ESA is also cooperating with EUMETSAT, and we have celebrated this year 20 years of successful cooperation between EUMETSAT and ESA. Because ESA is cooperating with the European Commission on the Galileo program and now on the GMES program, and also because ESA cooperates with industry and operators. So by speaking of ESA, I think that I am speaking of Europe. About the recent events which took place since the last Congress, I must say that we had a lot of events in all domains of space activities. And speaking of relationship with national agencies, I must say that we have launched Venus Express, which is an ESA mission, but with national instruments. We have celebrated 2 years of operations of Mars Express, and we have landed on the moon, even though it was a little bit harsh, but Smart 1 is now on the surface of the moon. Speaking of relationship with EUMETSAT, we have launched the Meteosat second generation satellite last December. Speaking of relationship with the European Commission, we have launched the first Galileo satellite with GOV-A last December. Speaking of international relations, we have right now our astronaut Thomas Reiter on board the space station, replacing a Russian astronaut and launched by the US Space Shuttle. Speaking of commercial successes, Ariane 5 ECA is demonstrating its reliability and its competitiveness. And I would like to report the only bad news of the year with the unfortunate failure of the launch of Cryosat. Cryosat is the first of the Earth Explorer mission of ESA, a very important mission, so important that the member states, they have already decided to rebuild Cryosat, and Cryosat 2 will be launched in 2009. I would like to complete this list of success by recalling that the 4 semi-finalists of the Football World Cup were all ESA member states. So you know what you have to do if you wish to win the World Cup. Another important event took place in Berlin in December with the Council of ESA at ministerial level, which was a great success. I would say an historical success. Historical for at least 2 reasons. First of all, because we have improved the coherence among the European actors by deciding, and this is the member states which have decided to set up a launch procurement policy. I recall that I was the only Director General of the world, of a space agency in the world, not having a launch procurement policy, so now I have at least a clear policy. I have to use ESA launchers for ESA missions. We have also, and the member states have also decided to, in spite of the uncertainties at that time on the International Space Station, they have confirmed their commitment to the International Space Station. And they have also underlined the importance of the relationship between ESA and the European Commission. And the member states, they have also decided to embark into new programs, meaning that we are entering into the future by deciding the start of the GMES program, which is this global monitoring for environment and security, which will be the European contribution to the GEOS initiative, to embark also on a new exploration program, and to embark into new technology program, be it on launchers, on telecommunications, or on generic technologies. So the Council at ministerial level of 2005 was an important step towards the future. So what is the future of Europe in space? The future of Europe is made of more ambitions. More ambitions because we are adding a European Union dimension to the European space policy, which is certainly very important for Europe. The European space policy will not be anymore the European space policy of the ESA member states, but also the European space policy of the European Union. And we are today developing a European space policy with an EU dimension, which should be endorsed next year under the German presidency of the European Union. But the future of Europe is also made of more coherence and more consensus within the European actors. We have to, and we are working to establish a much stronger coordination among the actors, to keep the flexibility of the European space policy, which is certainly a factor of success, but also to prepare for new members of ESA. In 5 years, ESA will certainly be at least 22 member states. We are 17 today, but also by building up a new relationship between ESA and the European Union. The future of Europe will be made also of more international cooperation with all partners in the world. And I must say that we are cooperating with all the agencies which will speak after my introductory remarks. We are cooperating in science. We are cooperating for the Global Earth Observation System of Systems. And we are cooperating also on the International Space Station. And we shall cooperate in the exploration program. As you know, Europe has started its contribution to an exploration program by automatic missions to Mars, but also by preparing the European contribution to the Man-Moon exploration program. Europe can certainly not be a leader of the exploration program, but we can take some initiatives, and especially initiatives on the cooperation models, because we know what means cooperation in Europe. The future of Europe will be made also of new technologies for improving the competitiveness of European industry, not only for competition but also for cooperation. Will be made of new discoveries with new scientific program, and just to say that we are visiting all planets of the solar system, and we are preparing now a mission to Mercury with the mission Bepi Colombo. We shall be back to Mars with the ExoMars mission, and again we shall be part of the exploration program. Will be made also of new services starting with the global monitoring for environment and security, where we shall look at disasters, climate, water, all the management that we need to make life on Earth sustainable. And we have also to develop a new culture because space agencies cannot work anymore for themselves. We have to work for the citizens, meaning that we have to listen to the users. And as you know, when you want to lead, you must first listen. So, I would like to finish by saying that we have still a lot of concrete events in front of us before the next Congress in India. We shall launch METOP in the next few days, which is another example of the cooperation between ESA and EUMETSAT. We shall make the first firing test of the first stage of the Vega launcher, and since we have fired already the two upper stage, I must say that we are closer to the first launch of Vega. There will be the launch of CORO, which is a French mission, but with a cooperation with ESA. We shall launch also the second Galileo satellite with GOVB, and we shall launch GOCE, which will be the second of the Earth's Explorer, looking at the gravity field of the Earth. And I would not like to end without mentioning that 2007 will be a fantastic year for ESA as a partner of the International Space Station, because we shall launch in 2007 the first ATV by mid-2007, And there will be the launch of Columbus, which is planned today in September, October next year, meaning before the Congress. And we shall have 3 astronauts flying on board the space station, starting with Christer Fuglesang at the end of the year, Paolo Nespoli in summer next year, and Hans Legel together with Columbus. Just to say that at the next IAC Congress, Europe will be a concrete partner of the International Space Station. Thank you very much, and see you next year.
Merci beaucoup, Jean-Jacques. Are there any questions? I can't see out into the audience, so if somebody has a question, please stand up and shout it out. Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Can we get the microphone at the table working, please? Okay. The question was the future in ESA for space education.
Yes, Amalia, you know that I am taking care a lot of about education. I am an old professor, so education is very important. And clearly, space activities in general can be appealing for students, and I think that we have to use all opportunities to make sure that space will attract the best experts of the next generations, because we need the best experts in space. Space activities is a very risky business, and our main job is to manage the risks. And to manage the risk, we have to have the best students. And to make sure that we shall have the best students in the future, we have to attract them to space activities. And this is the objective of what ESA is doing for education. Obviously, we are not in charge of education, because education is still a national responsibility and not a European responsibility. But we are just helping. We are just helping by putting at the disposal of universities or professors a lot of tools, be it flight opportunities, opportunities for parabolic flights, also opening the concurrent engineering facility in ESTEC, and also we are inviting a lot of students at that Congress. I must say that we are trying to attract the students also to that Congress. So this is what we are doing. Again, we are not in charge of education, but we are trying to help the educators. This is the way we see our support to education and to educators.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go to our second speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 11th Administrator for NASA, who began his tenure in April of 2005, Dr. Mike Griffin.
Thank you, Mark. And it's a pleasure to be here again this year for our annual fall rite of passage. Mindful of the time, I will try to concentrate on some of the significant things that have happened in the last year and that we're doing. One of the most significant things about our program at NASA is that it hasn't changed in the last year. When I took over, I announced several priorities for NASA: flying the shuttle safely until we retire it, not later than 2010, using the shuttle to complete the International Space Station, meet our commitments to our international partners and use the station to conduct scientific research and meet the needs of exploration, to bring the crew exploration vehicle into service as soon as possible after we retire the shuttle, maintain a balance between science, exploration, and aeronautics, encourage appropriate commercial space sector partnerships, very important to us in the United States, and pursue international cooperation in implementing the vision. These are my priorities for my term in office, and they have not changed. We've flown, since I've seen you last year, we've flown the shuttle twice, 3 times now since Columbia. We've addressed the safety issues that caused the loss of Shuttle Columbia, we believe, with the external tank. We think we're in great shape with regard to technical progress on the external tank. With last month's mission of Atlantis, we resumed construction of the International Space Station by installing the P3, P4 truss and the solar arrays with 3 highly complex but extraordinarily successful spacewalks. Our next mission in December will activate the new solar array, and we go on from there to complete the assembly of the station. We are almost exactly half done. On August 31st, we selected Lockheed Martin Corporation to be the prime contractor to design, develop, and build the Orion crew exploration vehicle, which will replace the space shuttle as a means of getting U.S. and international astronauts to and from the space station and to and from the moon on our voyages of exploration when they resume. We have selected SpaceX and rocket plane Kistler to demonstrate commercial orbital transportation services, and if successful, that will allow us to contract with those firms to provide cargo and maybe eventually crew delivery services to the space station. We are in the middle of establishing a program to return to the moon and hope to do it as an international endeavor. In April, we conducted an international workshop with representatives of 13 countries to begin to answer the questions, what will we do as a group when we do return to the moon? We've created a comprehensive database of compelling activities to pursue on the moon, guided by a goal of 6 overarching exploration themes that address those issues. We will continue to pursue these discussions, in fact, with another workshop in December, and there have been workshops in Italy and in Canada since we met in April. We continue to discuss with 13 international space agencies potential collaboration for exploration. The pace of lunar exploration is in fact picking up with Europe's Smart 1 mission that Jean-Jacques just discussed a few moments ago, China's Chang'e mission, the Japan's Selene mission. India will soon launch Chandrayaan-1, and I'm happy to say that NASA has a payload on Chandrayaan-1, and of course the NASA Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter to launch in 2008. We can do more to cooperate. A promising area to do so would be a near-term foundation for the next generation of lunar exploration in formatting our collected data to a widely accessible data standard and allowing sharing among the spacefaring nations of the world of all lunar data which is collected and archived. And of course, I think it is not too soon to begin a mutual discussion and exchange of ideas on national exploration architectures. I think our overall plans in the United States for returning to the moon will exist no matter what, but we will get the highest possible leverage from those if they are consistent with the interests and with the architectures of other nations. We do want to build strong international partnerships in space exploration. NASA will not prescribe or even attempt to prescribe the actions and the architectures of others, but we welcome you to join with us in collaborating on voyages of humans and robots, first to the moon, then later to Mars, and after that beyond. I look forward to working with you in this endeavor as we move it the first few steps down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Welcome very much. Very important. It's time, I think, to take the horse and to work. It's time to work with the agencies in a coordinated way on the architecture, on the plans, on the sequence of events. You cannot do science and extract resources at the same time. It's fairly dangerous for the science. It may not be so efficient for the resources. There is a plan to be prepared, and I strongly push for the initiative of Jean-Jacques Dordain to introduce cooperation at the agency level, interagency groups, which will certainly make it much more efficient and will go along what you just proposed. So I congratulate you for this initiative, but there is a step further to be done, and COSPAR, with the community which it represents, is ready to help if necessary.
Well, thank you. I think we are proceeding in that direction, and we'll continue to do so.
We have time for another quick question. Yes, at the back.
NASA does not set its own priorities. We are an executive agency of the United States federal government. Our priorities are set for us by our enabling legislation, in particular the 2005 NASA Authorization Act, and the desires of the President as expressed in our annual budgeting process. Currently, of our not quite $17 billion budget, about $5.3 billion are allocated to robotic space and earth science. Just under $1 billion are allocated to aeronautics, and the rest goes to human spaceflight in one of two forms. In the first case, we are spending, as you well know, many $billions a year to fly the space shuttle system and to finish the International Space Station. And we have also begun to ramp up spending on the development of our exploration systems vehicles, which will follow the shuttle after its retirement. So those are our priorities.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
Our third speaker is from Canada, representing the Canadian Space Agency, the Vice President for Science, Technology and Programs, Dr. Virendra Jha.
Thank you, Mark. Fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to present what the Canadian program is. I'll try to explain why we have a program, how we do it, and what we do it. Why space? Firstly, Canada being the second largest country in the world with world's largest coastline, close to 250,000 kilometers in length, Canada has a relatively small population of 31 million. In fact, our landmass has even led one of our former prime ministers to comment that some countries have problem of too much history, we have problem with too much geography. It's very difficult with a small population to provide necessary infrastructure to meet the need of every citizen of the country. And that's why we have found space as one of the best means of providing those services. As early as 4 decades ago, Canada turned to space for solutions. We launched our first satellite called Alouette 1 in 1962, and became the third nation in the world to orbit around the Earth after US and Soviet Union. Following Alva's success, we quickly realized that space could deliver in our critical service areas such as telecommunications and Earth observation. Once we established those needs, we quickly progressed in terms of how we establish our program. I'll describe our philosophy a bit close to what we call the Swiss watch model. We selected few key niche areas, and we decided to be best in those areas so that our expertise was not only useful in Canada, but also sought around the world, and that gave us many opportunities for international partnerships. The satellite communication was our first need, and through this program, we managed to connect most of the northern communities of Canada. And initially, this program started with the government investment, and now it has been totally privatized. And our role now in this area is simply to fly new technologies which provide heritage to the industry and thereby create new market. The next area of our expertise after satellite communications has been radar-based Earth observation, which started with RadarSat-1 satellite. This satellite has gone beyond our original expectations. Initially, it was designed for safe navigation through ice in the Canadian North, but subsequently it has contributed to many benefits for Canada and for the rest of the world. It's all around the world being used for disaster management, agriculture, security, and many other reasons. And RadarSat-1 has now been in operation for 11 years and is still functioning, and we are in the process of building RadarSat-2, which is supposed to be launched next year in March-April timeframe. Our third area of technology is space robotics, and this has been a key component of our contribution in our international partnership with the United States. Our first robotics was on the shuttle arm, and now our robotics is being used on the space station, and we continue to develop those technologies for future missions. So these were the three critical areas in which we have decided to stay, and we continue to develop new technologies so we maintain the leadership in these three areas. In addition to these three areas, we have a space science program which utilizes some of these technologies and skills available in Canada to generate new knowledge and new technologies. One of the other features we have in our program is international partnerships. Very quickly we realized that with a small budget, we remain in niche technologies, but we also remain a very strong international partner, and we seek partnerships which are of mutual benefits. And because that we have cooperating membership in European Space Agency program, we cooperate with NASA and many other space agencies of the world. In the interest of the time, I'll focus on a few key areas where we are going in the future. We have started now focusing our programs from the large programs, we are shifting our focus a bit into smaller programs. Our goal is to launch one microsatellite every 2 years and one small satellite every 2 years, thereby giving us an opportunity to launch at least one mission every year. The first one we start would be NeoSat, microsatellite, and we already have a microsatellite in orbit called MOST, and the first small satellite we'll be launching is called Cassiope. This is a satellite which will be studying atmosphere, upper atmosphere, and as well as has a communications payload which could be classified or termed as FedEx in the sky. It will have the capacity of dumping terabytes of data. As I said, we continue to provide SAR constellation RadarSat data, and our next program in that series is a generation of 3 small radar satellites. As I said, our series of small satellites at this point, if I had to plan for the future, Cassiope is one which is going to be launched in 2007, followed by Chinook, which is a Earth observing atmospheric satellite for atmospheric sciences. The third one, if we get the funding, would be hyperspectral mission for Earth observation, and followed by 3 small satellites for RadarSat. So we have on our books at least 6 small satellites planned for the future. We continue as a policy to provide C-band radar data not only for Canada, but we'll provide that for the world, and that's the reason why we'll continue with the SAR Constellation program. In the communication satellite, we'll continue to develop new technologies. Just as in ANIC F2, we launched a very advanced K-band payload. We are looking for opportunities for new technologies for the next generation SATCOM payload, which will provide critical heritage to our industry and thereby providing other opportunities. Also talking about future, we will be looking at exploration, which is the direction most of the space agencies are going in. As cooperating member of ESA, we have joined the Aurora program and a small contribution in the ExoMars program. We are actively developing exploration strategy with other countries, which US is leading, and we are hoping in a serious way to be a strong partner in US Moon and Mars and beyond vision. Our areas of interest in exploration continue to be robotics, active vision systems, remote sensing, communications technology, advanced drilling technologies, and we have Canada's North provide some analog site where some of the technologies can be proven on Earth, and we will provide those sites for some of the technology development and verification. In terms of current budgets, we are suffering what we call from our past successes. We have 3 missions in orbit now and a small budget, and a significant part of our budget is now going towards operation of those missions, which leaves very small funding for new missions. But we are doing the best we can, and obviously, like every other agency, we continue to make the case for more money for the space agency. We are committed to continue in developing new and innovative technologies for the benefit of all Canadians and hopefully for the whole humanity. And with that, I'd like to close my comments here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Virendra. Would there be any questions for Dr. Jha? Yes.
It's a launch vehicle for Microsat. As you know, in Canada, as a policy, we do not develop launch vehicle, so we always seek commercial launchers, and there are options, Russian options. There are, these things are selected on a competitive basis, so it's not wise for me to announce here what's a launch vehicle. So.
Thank you. Another question? All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Jha. It's now my pleasure to welcome the chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, Dr. Madhavan Nair, who will speak to us about current programs in India and their future plans. Dr. Nair.
Thank you, Dr. Grano. Fellow chiefs on the space agencies, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings to all of you. I would like to thank first all the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I consider it a privilege to talk about the Indian space program. Of course, we have, second slide please. We have the space program, which is of a relatively recent history, only 3 decades of active work. We have achieved sort of self-reliance in building satellites, launching them with the launch vehicles which are developed in India, the PSLV and GSLV. And we have completed, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. We have achieved something like 44 missions in this period, and 4 missions for other countries like Korea, Belgium, Germany, and so on. And out of these missions, we have 15 of them, 15 spacecrafts are very active and live. 8 of them in the geostationary orbit, serving the purpose of communication, TV broadcasting, meteorological sensing, and so on. And then we have the low Earth orbiting satellites, the IRS-1C series, as well as the ResourceSat, which is serving the purpose of Earth observation. This satellite data is being acquired and utilized for the national program as well as for the international uses. Well, we have been carrying out these activities with a budget starting with less than $500 million and now very closely touching $1 billion. We have national laboratories which are capable of carrying out almost all technologies which is required for the satellites as well as the launch vehicles. But our main thrust area is the application programs. Our founding father, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, had a vision that the space technology has to be harnessed and utilized for the development of the huge mass, the populace in the country like India. We have a population which is crossing 1.1 billion now, and out of them, about 70% of the population are in the rural areas. Reaching out the rural areas through the satellite communication, and then trying to assess the natural resources, and proper planning of utilizing these natural resources becomes a very important element in the national development. And in fact, we have given a lot of thrust in these areas. Today, in the communications area, looking at the power of digital connectivity, we have dedicated one satellite exclusively for educational purposes called EduSat. It provides connectivity between the higher educational institutions. Of course, as you know, that there is a shortage of expert teachers. This is overcome by having an expert professor reaching out to something like 30 to 100 classrooms simultaneously and providing an interactive means of communication. Then comes the rural masses, where the adult literacy program has to be run off the office, of the normal working hours. And again, there is a need for providing science and mathematics education to the primary and secondary schools. This is being very widely served by the EduSat, and I'm happy to say that more than 10,000 classrooms are connected in the country today. Well, another area is on the medical service. Most of the high specialty hospitals are in the metros, and we are using the satellite connectivity for providing teleconsultation. The patient data is transmitted in the digital form to the expert, and then the expert can have the video conference with the patient, thus providing an opportunity for an expert consultation for people spread out in the villages. So these two popular programs are very much on. Of course, we are giving thrust to the other area of disaster management. We have got an integrated program of Earth observation from the geostationary orbit as well as the low Earth platforms. And this data is properly cataloged, and of course the disaster-prone areas are identified. And when an event occurs, these images are processed and the data is distributed to the mitigation agencies so they can intervene at the right time. So that way, the wide spectrum of societal applications has been implemented. And economic study carried out by one of the institutes shows that the returns to society is something like threefold compared to the investment what we have made in the space program so far. So that justifies for a country like India how the space program is important. Next video, please. Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, who was the founding father, he had a vision that India should achieve self-reliance in the space technology and its application. More or less, we have achieved that. Now we are trying to look for what next. We call it the second vision of Indian space program, and typically it's highlighted here. Of course, I can't dwell on all these aspects within a very short time, but the highlights of that, of course, we recognize the space is going to be the next frontier for humankind, and the human presence in the space is going to be essential. We believe that such ventures are going to be complex, highly demanding in terms of technology as well as funding. So the international cooperation is the key word. Of course, we have been pursuing this international cooperation in the past, and something like 26 countries, we have the MOUs, and they are very active. The recent one I would like to highlight is with respect to the Russian Space Agency. developing a cryogenic stage for the Indian rocket program. The French Space Agency, CNES, we are working together in what's called a megatropics for instruments, scientific instruments being built in France and to go on a platform in the Indian satellite and launch vehicle. And then we are looking at the Chandrayaan, very important mission, in which, in fact, when we announced the opportunities, we got more than 30 responses from all over the globe. And we are happy to say that the European ESA has contributed 4 instruments now, and the NASA about 2 instruments, and that again another 5 instruments from our side. So it has become a very comprehensive program for observing the moon, studying the surface features, the mineralogy, and so on. And it's a very good example of the cooperation we can talk about for the future. Then we are going to have what is called a AstroSat. It's an orbiting astronomical laboratory, nowhere near Chandra, but it's a small one which can cover right from the visible spectrum all the way up to gamma rays and so on. And it's going to provide an international opportunity for the scientists to observe the galaxies and the stellar systems and so on. We believe that low-cost access to space is very important for the future. We are embarking on a program of developing a launch vehicle, which will GSLV Mark III, which will target for bringing down the cost of access to space to roughly half of what it is today. And then, of course, if we're looking towards the future, our concept is that we should be developing a 2-stage to orbit, which with a flyback capability, perhaps with part of the regime covered by air-breathing propulsion. So these technologies has to be invested. Again, of course, there are limitations in international cooperation because of the policy regimes of various countries, but we believe that is one trust area we have to target. Of course, looking at the moon, Mars, and beyond, that's going to be the challenge, and scientific groups are being prepared to face this challenge for the future. International space commerce also is part of our agenda. We have got the Antrix Corporation which deals with this. Today they are doing very well in marketing the remote sensing images, especially the ResourceSat, very well suited for agricultural purposes. And of course, for the future observation, we are trying to look at microwave observation of the planet Earth, and then the environmental monitoring, and then hyperspectral imaging and so on. So the agenda is cast here, and we hope that with the talents which is available in the country and with the cooperation with many space agencies, we should be able to make a real impact on the space arena in the future. Thank you for the patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. Are there any questions? Yes, go ahead. The question was how is ISRO going to incorporate the aspirations of youth, of young people, into its space program?
Well, we have got a number of outreach programs. We are encouraging the young scientists to take up the scientific exploration of the upper atmosphere, outer space, and planetary studies and so on. And we have 2 national important laboratories with ISRO. One is a physical research laboratory, and other is a space physics laboratory. These laboratories encourage students to work on topics like this. Of course, we have the outreach program for the school children and the college students and so on. We are trying to enthuse as many students as possible to join us. But as you see, almost all over the globe, the interest for the young community to come into such challenging scientific field is declining, and we are trying to do our best in propping up that.
Thank you. It's good to get a question from a young person. I hope there will be some more questions from young people in the audience today. I have a question, Dr. Nair. I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer the question, but with India's very considerable capability in all areas, does India have any long-term plans for putting humans into space?
Well, this question has been asked to me by many of my colleagues in India as well. I have been defending it so far, saying that we have good instruments, robots, which can do the exploration very well. But looking at the next generation of the programs and the type of the exploration activities which we have to undertake, I believe that human presence in space is a must, and we may have to undertake such a program. But it is still in the debate in the country, and hope soon we will have good support from the scientific community as well as the government to take up such a program.
Thank you. Time for one more quick question. Yes.
World.
Well, I think when we look at the space, it is, I believe it is something beyond the national boundaries, and it is high time the global community join hands in exploring the space. And we are taking initiative bilaterally, multilaterally, and through various MOUs and interaction with the scientific institutions in this area.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. Our next speaker is the head of JAXA, Dr. Tachikawa. Dr. Tachikawa took up his duties recently after a very long tenure with the Nippon Telegraph and Telephone Company. And please welcome Dr. Tachikawa.
Okay. Good morning, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I was very much looking forward to this opportunity to meet you here in the historical, beautiful city of Valencia for the 25th IAC. Today, I would like to present you JAXA's recent activities focusing on space application and space science programs. Slide, please. At the third Earth Observation Summit held in Brussels in February 2005, the 10-year implementation plan for a global Earth observation system of systems, known as GEOS, was adopted. Japan is committed to make a significant contribution to the three areas: disasters, climate, and water, among the 9 societal benefit areas defined in the plans. Next slide, please. JAXA will aim to establish a system making full use of the unique advantage of the space system to collect information necessary for predicting disasters such as rapid change on the ground and in the atmosphere, and to timely send emergency warning directly to the individual's mobile phone set by a communication satellite. Daiichi, or Advanced Land Observing Satellite, we called AROS, launched last January, is an Earth observation satellite designed to obtain the precise topographic data and is highly expected to contribute to understanding the impact of a disaster as quick as possible. In the disasters management support system, communication satellites would play important roles as well. They would enable us to collect information on the impact of the disaster as a disaster-affected area directly from handheld portable terminals via satellite, and would play a role as an ultra-high-speed communications network between the disaster-affected area and the headquarters of disaster management organizations. In order to demonstrate this advanced satellite technology, JAXA will launch ETS-8, or Engineering Test Satellite 8, around the end of this year, and wins its wideband inter-networking engineering test and demonstration satellite in 2008, respectively. After that, JAXA is planning to launch the constellation of disaster monitoring satellites to establish the disaster management support system. Next slide, please. We called on the Space Agency and disaster management agencies in the Asia region participating in the APR-SAF tariffs, or the Asian Pacific Regional Service Agency Forum, last year to jointly build a disaster management support system in Asia and the Pacific region, utilizing the space infrastructure. Strongly supported by member countries, we have held 2 joint project team meetings so far, one in Vietnam and one in Thailand. Today, 19 countries in the region and 52 institutions are taking part in the joint project team aiming to establish such a system, and have started the Sentinel Asia project as a first step to distribute the image taken from the satellites through internet. In addition, JAXA formally joined the International Charter Space and Major Disasters in February 2005. As the occurrence of recent major disasters, such as the landslide in Leyte Island in the Republic of the Philippines last February, the flood in the northern part of Thailand last May, and so on, JAXA acquired the images of disaster-affected areas by Daiichi and has provided the images to the countries concerned through the international charter. Next slide. In order to protect the environment of our planet Earth, it is quite important to grasp global changes accurately and reveal their mechanisms. JAXA will contribute to establishing a system which could serve as a useful tool to provide essential information for making decisions through integrating remote sending data from Earth observation satellites with in situ data from ground observation, and developing disaster data sets that are necessary for understanding the global environment, then combining those disasters with capable prediction systems such as the Earth simulator. Next slide. Many places in the world now faces water problems such as water shortage and floods. In addition, global warming and climate change are predicted to affect the global water cycle and result in abnormal weather, such as frequent heavy rain and droughts. GPM, or Global Precipitation Measurement, currently scheduled to be launched around 2013, is designed to make more accurate and frequent observation of global rainfall, and is expected to provide very useful information for elucidating global water cycle mechanisms. In addition, JAXA plans to launch the GCOM-W series, or Global Change Observation Missions Water, which will observe the water cycle from 2011. Global warming has become a very serious issue for human beings. The Kyoto Protocol, adopted in 1997, makes it mandatory for developed countries to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. GOSAT, Greenhouse Gas Observing Satellite, planning to be launched in 2008, is a satellite to observe the global distribution of greenhouse gas concentration from space. Not only carbon dioxide, but also methane, and it is expected to contribute to international efforts to prevent global warming. Also, JAXA plans to launch the GCOM-C series, Global Change Observation Missions Climate, which will observe the climate change from 2012. Next, I'd like to change my topics to space science. The biggest challenge of space science are to reveal the mysteries of the origin, structure, and evolution of the universe, the processes of the stellar and planetary formation, and the origin of life. JAXA will continue further observations and research to investigate the past and the future of the Earth, as well as investigate where mankind came from and where we are going under international cooperation through space astronomical observations using various lengths of waves, including X-rays, infrared rays, and radio waves, as well as solar system exploration of the moon and the planets. Next slide. JAXA will launch observatories in orbit for space observation in the field where Japan has excellent teams of scholars and experts: X-ray astronomy, infrared astronomy, radio astronomy, and solar physics. Suzuka, launched in July 2005, is a fifth in a series of Japanese X-ray astronomy satellites. Suzaku was developed in collaboration with NASA, and its observation programs are selected by peer review from proposals submitted from the scientists all over the world. Akari, launched last February, is Japan's first infrared astronomical satellite. Its main mission is to perform the next generation's all-sky survey in infrared wavelengths for the study of the stars and galaxies. Japan's Haruka is the only satellite on the world which has conducted VLBI observation in space. JAXA plans to launch the second generation of space VLBI mission we call Astro-G in 2011. Astro-G is being designed to image the core of star-forming regions and galaxies with more than 10 times higher resolution and sensitivity than those of Haruka. The solar bee we call Hinode, which means sunrise in Japanese, launched on September 23rd this year, is an international cooperation mission among Japan, the United States, and the United Kingdom and the European Space Agency. Hinode is expected to advance our understanding of the mechanisms underlying solar managing variability and how this variability affects the space weather. Next slide, please. JAXA will focus on the planetary environmental study to reveal the evolution process of the planet, as well as the interaction of solar activities. To this aim, JAXA will launch Planet C Venus Orbiter designed to disclose the dynamic processes of the Venus atmosphere in 2010, followed by Mercury Orbiter carried by the Baby Colombo spacecraft, designed to comprehensively observe the Mercury's magnetosphere. The Baby Colombo project is jointly performed by Japan and the European Space Agency. The spacecraft will be launched in 2013 to reach Mercury in 2019. Next, last fall, Hayabusa asteroid sample return spacecraft arrived at its target asteroid Itokawa and successfully launched and took off from Itokawa. Hayabusa captured and sent a lot of images of Itokawa, which are much against our expectation and evoked the world's scientific interest. Hayabusa will start driving its ion engines again next year and is expected to return to the Earth in 2010. Returning home does demonstrate the world's first interplanetary stopover round-trip cruise, which taps for the new solar system exploration era. The Moon is an important celestial body that preserves the information on the formation and evolution processes of the terrestrial planets. JAXA plans to launch the Selene spacecraft next summer. The Selene is the largest spacecraft to the Moon since the Apollo program era. It will investigate the entire Moon in order to obtain the information on its elemental and mineralogical composition, its geography and its surface and subsurface structure, and its gravity field. The results are expected to be a better understanding of the origin and evolution of the Moon. Also, data obtained by the Selene will be of great scientific importance for the future possible utilization of the Moon. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Tachikawa. Any questions, please? Yes. Down here in the center.
Thank you for your presentation. And I was interested in your cooperation with Thailand and Philippines. And also, you mentioned some examples of cooperation with the US and UK, Canada, and other developed countries, I think. My question is very short. What is your prospect for regional cooperation in East Asia, particularly in Northeast Asia? Thank you.
Okay, we are mostly focusing on the cooperation in Asian region or Pacific region, simply because we are in the same atmosphere, having such disasters. So we started our collaboration or cooperation with Asian countries, especially Thailand or Philippine country. So we would like to continue our such a cooperation with those countries, and if possible, in the future, we would like to expand our cooperation to other countries who might be interested in.
Thank you, Dr. Tachikawa. Speaking of regions and staying in the Pacific Theater, I'd like to now welcome our next speaker, Mr. Wei Zhang, who is the Director of the Foreign Affairs Department for the China National Space Administration. Mr. Wei Zhang.
Honorable Chairman, distinguished participants, dear colleagues, I'd like to introduce some Chinese activities in space, but mainly in three sites, just because the time is short, so I will focus on the future strategy and the planning. So firstly, next, please. Okay, next. That's sure. Next. Yes, thank you. It's national space activities for the China National Space Agency, what the regulations and its responsibilities. I just show some items here. Oh, next, please. Okay, next. It's easier to not reading it. Sorry, I can't see that. Nothing is for the explain that is in the responsibility. Where sorry, so for what? sorry. I can't see that there's no on the paper. Okay, I'll try to explain that mainly. It's white paper. Please next slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'd like to see here. Maybe
Okay.
it's clear for me. Yes, it's main achievements. Okay, next. Sorry, it's just okay. So the a complete R&D production system is a complete, well-established research design, production and testing system. That's mean we already finished all this basically infrastructures. And Space Launch Center, we have the three in China, and TTC network is suitable for launching any kind of satellite and also the spaceship. And satellite data, okay, sorry. It's too quick, huh? Okay. For the technology side, the first man-made, that's just show some history because this year is China's space activities in 50 years the ceremony. So we will celebrate that our 50 years birthday. So from the first satellite and the first astronauts float, and also the next year we are launching the lunar exploration, the satellite firstly, and also we have no, it's too quick. Okay, and also mentioned we already have the 6 series of satellite in application site and scientific areas. And also, and in the space applications is very useful from the space technology benefited to the economy. It's typically is for the typhoon forecast. In this year, we have the strongest typhoon landed in the source, but we can in advance to give the early warning. So it's a good for the people save their life and also reduce all the damages from the typhoon. Okay, next. And also That's application. Okay, next. And in the communication side, we already have the DFH-3 satellite, but it's a small capacity and shorter lifetime. And now we're developing the new generation, and it's mainly in the carriage. We're launching that in this year, the first satellite in the new platform for the using for the broadcasting on TV and carriage to all the villages in China areas. Since we have true national level engineering, we call that every villages have to get covered by TV and by telephone. That's not either in China, but now our target is to cover the villages which has 20 families in that. But if less than that, it's not in this stages, next stages. So it's our national target. We have to serve for that. And also, in the space science, we have the Double Star successfully cooperated with ESA last 5 years, and also we did every kind of the space researches, including our spaceship. We have some big bag is for the microgravity testing, and also for the space debris. We started our working on that. Next, please. And next? Next, yeah. And we got many cooperation with different agencies and with areas. We signed the agreement with ESA, and we get a new agreement with Russian and also some other European countries, including the CNICE and also South American, with INPE. We have the very good cooperation in the CBERS areas. Next, please. And also we involved the United Nations cooperation in outer space. Next, please. Okay, next. Just show some pictures. So we signed that agreement with the ESA, Russian, yeah. Okay, that's main point, development strategy and the priority areas in the future, next 5 years mainly. Our strategy is from a national level, we will focus on space in some key projects to improve our abilities in space. And also the second is transfer our satellite from application and testing stages to the operational service stages. That's from our side, we call that, because we're not in the operated systems for economic areas like the meteorological and also the land observation, but just we call it is still in the testing or experimental stages. Even we have the more satellite launched, and also support space science explorations and international space cooperation. That's 4 main areas. Next, please. Yes, the program or project is the manned space program. Our target is to realize the astronaut extra vehicles activities and also the docking and rendezvous to realize that in the space, but not near. It's maybe next few years. And the lunar exploration I mentioned is next year we are launching the first satellite, but just running as the satellite of the moon. And also the third, from the national level, we are asked to set up the high-resolution Earth observation system. That means we already have many kinds of observation satellite, but they are not planned in the whole systems. Like in Europe, they have the GMES, in the national side, and the US, they have the GEOS. But from China and Asia areas, we really need that with the high resolution, the spatial and the spectral and other sides, but they must meet the requirements from the economics side. So that's a big engineering or project in China. And also we are setting up our own precision navigation systems from next year. And also the last is the new generation launcher vehicles I will introduce that later. Let's show some pictures and target next, please. That's for the lunar exploration programs. And that's some roadmap, and we are trying to, after that, we are trying to land it on the moon, and also drilling and retain some materials by the 2020 around that. So that's the middle target. I mentioned that for the high resolution Earth observation system, our target is to conclude that from the satellite, near space, and airborne, and also on the ground, they organize the whole systems to get the effectively using the data and sharing all this results for any kind. Okay, that's for the navigation. Next, please. The launcher is we're limited for the ability to get into the space now because we have the new generation platform for communication. We have the main shape, but our launcher is limited by their abilities. So we're starting this new generation. We call it a new generation. That's the core is we're designed and trying to build this new rocker with a diameter of 5 meters, and then we combined all these products up to now with a new core to get a series of the launcher. And after that finished, we're finally to getting that ability to the geostationary, we'll get this 14 tens. And for the low orbit, we're trying to get 25 tens. And that's will meet all our program's needs for the launching abilities. We're target is to finish that in next 10 or 15 years around that. Remote sensing, we're trying to launching the environment and disaster monitoring constellation next year. But the first batch is 3 satellites, including the 2 optical and 1 radar. But finally, we'll finish that by the 4 optical and 4 radar set. That's in the next 5 years, we are trying to reorganize our receiving and processing systems in national level. That's some map shows that we'll have the center in the receiving and the processing in Beijing, and some other receiving stations will around China. That will support our high resolution and then later on the observation systems. That shows some several applications, and the newest results is that we just recovered our satellite for the seeds researching for the farmer. We think it should be get benefited because China is the largest the agriculture countries. We better to do our best for the economics. The space exploration. Next, please. We're focused on some new project to explore some new phenomena in the space areas. But now we have the 2 projects to be chosen. There's one is the telescope, space solar telescope, and the next is the hard X modulation telescope. But now it's the priority is for the hard X3 telescope. We're trying to find some more black hole and to do some more researches. But that's we're very open for cooperative with any country and any partners to involve that together. We already discussed with IAC and with the Italian and with some other countries. I think it's a good project. Okay, finally, the space cooperation. We announced the white paper 6 years ago, and this year we'll give a new version of the white paper. So here listed all these priority areas we're trying to find cooperated in the worldwide. Okay, next. Including the space astronomy and the space physics in the science areas. That's why they used cooperated. Next, please. And also the Earth observation, we are successfully with Brazil cooperated in the middle resolution areas, but for the high resolution, we're also interested with other countries cooperated in that. And manufacturing, design, the satellite. Also, we are successfully cooperated with Venezuela and some other countries in the communication areas. And ground equipment for the satellite, even including the parts. Okay. Communication applications, yeah, next. And navigation positioning, we're involved in the Galileo program, and we are trying to, in China, where GPS is used very successfully and widely. And in China, we're trying to combine the Galileo and Chinese navigation system and on-the-ground receiving and services together, and also including the GLONASS. We think it's the best direction in the different systems in the space, but on the ground they are compatible for the user. They have some more choice for the navigation. And also the launching and TTC space supporting, we're interested in for. Okay, sorry, sir, thanks for your attention and your patience. Thank you.
We have time for one quick question. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're partners with Russian. We have some cooperation organism with Russian. So I think we're not competing, and we're cooperation more and more in the future in any fields, including the exploration and maybe in the Mars.
Thank you, Mr. Wei Zhan.
Thank you.
Our seventh and last speaker, and we're delighted that he was able to make it because there was a rather tight connection, is of course Dr. Anatoly Perminov, who is the head of the Federal Space Agency for Russia. Dr. Perminov.
Okay. Я прошу извинить за опоздание, но я не знал, что, пользуясь властью, Марк Гарно изменил расписание сегодняшнего мероприятия.
Please excuse me for being late. I didn't know that Mark Garneau used his authority and changed the time of the beginning of this plenary.
Я рад приветствовать участников Международного конгресса космического от имени всего космического сообщества России.
I am glad to welcome all the participants of the International Astronautical Congress on behalf of all the Russian space community.
Сегодня мы живем и работаем в эпоху перемен в космической деятельности.
Today we are passing in the era of changes in space activities.
По-моему, достаточно было послушать предыдущий доклад с китайской стороны, чтобы еще раз подтвердить это.
And to confirm this idea, it was enough for me to listen just to one report from the Chinese National Space Administration.
В России тоже произошел ряд перемен, и с момента прошлой встречи в Фукуоке принята новая федеральная космическая программа России на 10 лет.
In Russia too, a series of changes have occurred since our last meeting in Fukuoka. First, the Russian government accepted the Federal Space Program of Russia for 2006-2015. Next few graph, please.
В рамках этой программы планируется к 2015 году развернуть на орбите около 40 спутников связи.
Next few graph, please. Within the framework of this program for telecommunications, next few graph, please.
А также 12 космических аппаратов подвижной персональной связи.
You see here, by 2015, there will be 41 telecom and broadcasting satellite, plus 12 satellites of mobile personal communications.
Задача дистанционного зондирования Земли будет решаться с помощью специализированных спутников типа «Ресурс-П».
Next view graph, please. The Earth monitoring system will be based on specialized satellites, Resource-P.
Будут созданы два космических комплекса метеорологических на базе геостационарного спутника «Электро», который войдет в состав международной спутниковой сети Всемирной метеорологической организации ВМО.
There will be two meteorological space complexes developed. They will be based on a geostationary meteorology satellite Electro, which will be a part of the international satellite network of WMO.
Планируется запуск космических аппаратов для решения задачи краткосрочного прогнозирования землетрясений.
For earthquake monitoring and forecast, we will develop and launch our satellite Canopus-V.
Значительное место отводится в программе фундаментальным научным исследованиям.
Next few graph, please. A major role is played by space science satellites.
Запланирована реализация ряда астрономических и астрофизических проектов, основными из которых являются обсерватории типа «Спектр».
A series of astronomical and astrophysical missions is planned, and the major observatories of Spectre series, Spectre R and Spectre UV.
Для проведения межпланетных исследований запланирован запуск двух автоматических станций Фобос-Грунт и Венера-Д.
For interplanetary research, we plan to launch two automatic stations, first Phobos-Grunt and Venus-D.
Для обеспечения развития всех направлений космической деятельности предусмотрена очень серьезная модернизация всей наземной инфраструктуры.
And we also envisage a very in-depth modernization of ground infrastructure.
Другая важная космическая программа – глобальная навигационная система.
Next few graph, please, and the next. And the next. Yes, the other major task is a global navigation system.
Согласно решению президента России, в этом году она претерпела очень серьезную модернизацию.
It was a president's decision taken this year, and this program was sufficiently upgraded.
Срок ее создания, задача поставлена в конце 2009 года.
And the time limit when we will have to build this system is 2009.
В составе 24 космических аппаратов и наземной инфраструктуры.
It means that there will be 24 satellites in orbit, and the ground infrastructure will be completed.
Очень важный вопрос развития пилотируемой космонавтики.
And a very important issue is the furtherance of human spaceflight missions.
В настоящее время идет подготовка концепции развития пилотируемой космонавтики на период до 2040 года.
Right now, a conceptual development of human spaceflight program for the horizon of 2040 is underway.
В этом документе мы хотим увидеть программу развития пилотируемой космонавтики в краткосрочной до 2015 года, среднесрочной до 2025 и долгосрочно до 30-х годов.
And this document will include both a short-term program until 2015, a middle-term program until 2025, and long-term program until after 2025-2030.
Мы думаем, что в 2016 году, в 2020 возможно принятие международными партнерами согласованного решения по завершению эксплуатации МКС.
And we think it will be possible then in the period of 2016-2020, international partners will take a mutually agreed decision on their termination of the ISS exploitation.
Как вариант, далее мы считаем необходимым изучить возможность создания перспективно пилотируемой или посещаемой орбитальной инфраструктуры на базе околоземных орбит с высоким наклонением.
And we think that one of the options will be a development of advanced crew transportation system and of an orbital platform with high inclination orbits.
А после 25-30 года предполагается создание соответствующих космических средств выполнения пилотируемых межпланетных полетов.
And for the period after 2025-2030, we think about the development of appropriate space assets to enable us to do interplanetary human missions.
Но мы рассматриваем эти программы только на основе равноправного сотрудничества и глобального международного партнерства.
But when we think about such programs, we realize that they can be done only on the basis of reciprocal international cooperation and global partnership.
И уже сейчас мы идем этим путем, и идет речь о совместном создании пилотируемых космических аппаратов.
And right now we go in exactly this way. We are talking about the development of crew transportation systems in cooperation with our foreign partners.
Мы стараемся тесно сотрудничать как раз по этому вопросу с Европейским космическим агентством по совместному планированию развития пилотируемых транспортных систем будущего.
And our major partner within this program is the European Space Agency, and we are talking about future strategy for. We are talking about the strategy for future crew transportation systems.
Первым этапом этой работы станет глубокая модернизация корабля семейства «Союз».
The first stage of this program will consist of in-depth upgrading of a Soyuz spaceship.
В результате которой он сможет использоваться для обеспечения, в том числе и лунных экспедиций.
And this upgrade will enable the vehicle to make lunar expeditions.
А уже на следующем этапе возможна реализация принципиально нового транспортного корабля.
And next stage can include the development of a principally new transportation vehicle.
Основным мотивом, определяющим нашу будущую деятельность в космосе, должна стать все большая интеграция.
And the driving force for future space developments should be integration.
Интеграция как объединение усилий участников космической деятельности во всем мире для реализации крупномасштабных проектов.
And by integration, I mean that all space powers should join their forces to implement large-scale and very challenging space missions,
которые слишком трудоемки для отдельно взятого государства.
Which will be very hard to implement by one single nation.
Мы сегодня нацелены на то, чтобы сделать нашу работу в космосе частью национальных и глобальных процессов модернизации и развития.
And we are now aiming at making our activities in space a part of national and global processes of modernization and development.
Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perminov. With my apologies, I'm told that there are urgent pressures for us to leave this room because, and I'm not just talking about those of us on the up here on stage, but also yourselves because of a conflicting event. So we'll have to forego the questions, but thank you for your presentation, sir. And And for that reason, you won't have to listen to my wrap-up remarks. There isn't time for them. I would like to, however, thank all the members of the panel for giving us their views on their respective space programs. Thank you in the audience for coming. For the media, there will be some press opportunities later on. And one last thing, Dr. Nair would like to do a small bit of publicity for the upcoming IAC in 2007. Dr. Nair.
Thank you, Mark. I'm sure you will be having a wonderful time here in Valencia, and you'll be enjoying the history as well as the technology here among yourself. But I'm happy to announce that the next session of IAC is going to be at Hyderabad in India. It's a historic place. Thousands of years of history is built into the city, and it's the most modern emerging IT center in India. So I extend a very warm welcome to all delegates to the next IAC in India at Hyderabad during September next year. Thank you.